Welcome to the lecture series of E. Padasala. This is a series for students of MArch. Now we are going to talk about climate change with specific respect to ocean-atmosphere interactions. The ocean-atmospheric interactions have much to do with climate change. In this lesson, we will talk about how the climate system functions, the factors influencing greenhouse effect, and the link between thermohaline circulation and climate change. And we will also understand about the role of ice cover. The predictability of climate is based on the interaction between the atmosphere and more inert climate subsystems, particularly oceans. Within the system, the various components of climate system move at a completely different rate. Low pressure systems can drift hundreds of kilometers within days. Ocean currents often creep along at a few meters per minute. Water, for instance, shows large amount of solar heat for long periods of times. This is a climate system. You take a particular thing that human influence. When you destroy the forest and create industries, the carbon stores in the trees as carbon string vanishes and more carbon is put into the atmosphere by these industries. Again, when you dig out the carbon, we bring dig out the carbon in the name of fossil fuels, oil, gas. Then we put more and more carbon into the atmosphere. If it is a fossil fuel in the form of coal, more carbon is released than natural gas. Overall, about 30% of the energy is reflected back into space, with 70% being absorbed by the atmosphere and surface of the planet. While about 30% of the energy is reflected back into the space, approximately 45% is absorbed directly by the oceans and the land. And roughly 25% is absorbed by the greenhouse gases. You see the picture, the 45% or up to 47% of the energy is absorbed by the land and oceans. This has a great impact on climate. Without the heat capturing properties of the gases, the earth would be minus 18 degrees Celsius. Now the average temperature of the earth is 15 degrees Celsius. There is often a lag time or thermal response between when the heat energy enters the climate system and when the energy responds. The natural greenhouse effect warms the globe and permits water to circulate around the planet via the process of evaporation, transpiration, precipitation and runoff. Even this natural occurrence such as transpiration or precipitation in the sense that it's the rainfall or it may be snowfall in the extreme cold conditions. Even for these, the greenhouse effect is necessary. When we alter this greenhouse effect, there can be drastic changes in any of these, including evaporation. Look at these planets. If you take the Earth is here, where the carbon dioxide concentration is 0.3% and the temperature is 15 degrees Celsius. If you take the Venus, the carbon dioxide concentration is 96% and the temperature is 420 or above Celsius. At the same time, if we take Mars, where the carbon dioxide is just close to the ground, the temperature is minus 50 degrees Celsius because the greenhouse effect is lacking there. But here, the greenhouse gas, in the case of Venus, the greenhouse gas is very thick, 96%, and the temperature goes up to 420 Celsius. The Sanskrit fall as an unequal solar radiation on the sphere. If the heat which falls in the center, the radiation is very high and the same amount of heat is dispersed over a large area in the North Pole and in the South Pole. This is responsible for the heat difference between the poles and the equator. And the equatorial area, as we know that the countries around the equator, we say the tropical countries, the heat is more. This is a phenomenon that as it moves In the northern latitude and the southern latitudes, that heat is less. Let us talk about Coriolis force. This Coriolis force, that the wind is deflected, and explains why winds circulate around the high and low pressure systems as opposed to blowing into the direction of the pressure gradient. The figure shows how the wind is deflected in each hemisphere, north and southern hemisphere. The ocean drives the atmosphere circulation by heating the atmosphere, mostly in the tropics near the equator. Most of the sun's absorbed heat is absorbed at the top of the tropical oceans. Sunlight passes through the air and warms the surface of the ocean. The ocean loses heat by evaporation. Trade winds carry the evaporated water vapor to the intertropical convergence zone, where it condenses as rain. Condensation releases the latent heat and warms the air. Warm air rises further, drawing in warm wet air, releasing more heat. This is a picture of intertropical convergence zone where the warm air rises up. So much heat is released by the air in the intertropical convergence zone that it drives much of the atmosphere circulation. Heat released by rain in cyclones and thunderstorms drives the storms. And the cyclones in the part of Bay of Bengal region, we call it cyclones. In other parts of the world, it may be called as hurricane, Willy Wiles, or it can be tornado. The ocean also loses heat by sending out infrared radiation, mostly in the tropics. The infrared radiation is absorbed by the water vapor in the tropical atmosphere, further heating the atmosphere. The winds carry heat from the tropics to the polar region. You see the case of a disk, a circle, and a sphere, and the average energy falling 1 square meter a level surface outside the atmosphere is only 1/4 of 1368 watts per meter square, which is 342 watts per meter square. And so as a sphere, the temperature falls is less. And let's see what is greenhouse. A greenhouse, also called glasshouse, is a building in which plants are grown. These structures range in size from the small sheds to a very large buildings. Primary heating mechanism of a glasshouse is convection. And in this, most probably a tropical botanical garden in a temperate cold region, and the tropical plants grow in a cold region by means of this glass sheet, which retains the temperature here. Real greenhouse also work by preventing cooler outside air from mixing in. Greenhouse effect is a long wave infrared or terrestrial radiation emitted downward back radiation by the atmosphere, including clouds, and absorbed by the Earth's surface. The infrared radiation is emitted and absorbed by greenhouse gases such as water vapor, carbon dioxide, ozone, methane, and also by clouds. This is a natural effect that warms the global average surface temperature from what it should be minus 18 degrees Celsius to plus 15 degrees Celsius. This greenhouse effect is needed to make the Earth inhabitable. The greenhouse effect, this is it. The Earth's heat comes in and some of the area, heat is radiated back into the space, but some are again trapped inside, and this warms up the globe. Factors influencing greenhouse effect, you see that solar energy influx, then chemistry of atmosphere, the composition of the gas, and 3, albedo. If we take the ice as albedo, if more ice is present or more clouds are present, that heat may be reflected out. This especially in case of ice, if the more ice, the heat is reflected back into the space, and if the ice starts melting, more and more heat is absorbed by the oceans. Note the annual cycle driven by the global photosynthesis, with the maximum of carbon dioxide occurring during the northern hemisphere spring. Carbon dioxide concentration measured at Mauna Loa, Hawaii, its pre-industrial value is 280 parts per million, and now it's almost touches 400 parts per million. Again, a few years ago, recent months, it has touched 396 or 394 in the 2013, the same Mauna Loa Observatory. Carbon cycle. The cycle is usually thought of as a 4 reservoirs of carbon interconnected by pathways of exchange. The reservoirs are atmosphere and then terrestrial biosphere, oceans and also sediments. The terrestrial biosphere usually includes freshwater systems and non-living organic material and such as soil carbon. Then if you take oceans, which includes dissolved inorganic carbon and living and non-living marine biota. Sediments, mainly it's fossil fuels. The annual movement of carbon between reservoirs occur because of various chemical, physical, geological and biological processes. Just see the figures in 1 gigatons. The vegetation holds 610, atmosphere 600, ocean 1000 top layer, the deep ocean 38,000, soil 1560 and sedimental rocks much more. That means that among these several spheres, the deep oceans have a good role in conserving carbon or retaining carbon as carbon sinks. Most of the available carbon is in the ocean. The ocean holds 50% more carbon than the atmosphere. About half of the Earth's primary production, the conversion of water, carbon dioxide, sunlight and inorganic nutrients into oxygen and hydrocarbons occurs in ocean. And when phytoplankton die and decay and when they are eaten, the hydrocarbons are converted back to carbon dioxide, using up all the oxygen produced by the phytoplankton. One aspect I would like to say is that if ocean keeps absorbing more and more carbon, and then that the carbon dioxide reacts with the carbonates and the calcium carbonate formation is slowed down. That means the creatures that require calcium carbonate like shrimp, crabs, they will reduce. At the same time, the creatures do not require the calcium carbonate formation like jellyfish will increase. This will alter the nature of the oceans. This is what is called acidification of ocean. Greenhouse gas emissions. You see that carbon dioxide used by the fossil fuel is more than 50%, that is 57%. That is mainly we dig out the fossil fuel and use it as energy. That's why the entire discourse of human influence climate change, we mainly concentrate on carbon dioxide. Again, carbon dioxide resulting out of use of fossil fuels. Again, deforestation, that is carbon dioxide is 17% and methane 14%. Methane can also happen because of open stagnant water like dams or probably that dump yards where the rotten material produce methane, or even in the rice field where water logging happens, that it can produce methane. Nitrous oxide 8% and other 3%. And which are the sectors which produce greenhouse effect? That is energy supply 26%, transport 13%, industries 19%, agriculture 14%, forestry 17% and residential buildings 8%. Carbon dioxide emission from fossil fuels. Carbon dioxide emission from fossil fuels have significantly increased since 1900. That in the last century it has increased drastically, and you see that from 1900 to 2016, the present period, the increase is very steep. Global carbon dioxide from fossil fuel combustion and some other industrial processes, and how this data includes carbon dioxide emission from fossil fuel combustion as well as cement manufacturing and gas flaring. Together these sources represent a large proportion of total carbon dioxide emission. You see that in the recent period, China has overtaken USA, which is the largest emitter, and then comes that a big bloc, European Union. India being a large country, it constitutes 6%, Russian Federation 6%, Japan, a small country 4%, and China 2%, and rest 28%. This is why in the climate change discourse, not only the developed countries like USA and European Union and Japan, they should curtail carbon, but the emerging economies like China and India, they also wanted them to be part of the climate curtailing process. And which are the countries which are emitting much greenhouse gases? Which regions of the world are emitting much greenhouse gases? The map depicts the unequal distribution of industries in the world. The significant part of carbon dioxide emissions comes from the energy production and industrial processes and transport. And high transport and energy production and industries concentrated in the Northern America, Europe, and Asia. Asia, maybe it's because of China, Japan, and also the Southeast Asian nations which are fairly rich. Emissions from carbon dioxide due to changes in land use. Now, how the land use changes, mainly maybe deforestation for agriculture, mainly come from the cutting down of forests and instead using the land for agriculture or built up areas, urbanization, roads, etc. When large areas of rainforest are cut down, the land often turns into less productive grasslands with considerably less capacity of storing carbon dioxide. The old trees store more carbon dioxide than the new trees, so even the afforestation may not be a substitute to destroying the old trees. Here, in that case, that South America has largest carbon emission with regard to the land use. That the Brazil, which is a high dense tropical forests, rainforests, and they are being destroyed. And Africa to some extent, again tropical forests including countries like Congo and even countries including India where there is high concentration of destruction of forests, including India, Burma, Malaysia, these places that in Sri Lanka that we have tropical forests, including Indonesia, thick tropical forests that Asia has a major role to play. 75% of the Earth's surface is ocean. That means almost 3/4 of the Earth's surface is ocean. Ocean appears featureless, but bathymetry shows all variations. Important to note that much of the ocean is greater than 3,000 meter deep, whereas little land is greater than 3,000 meter in elevation. Large areas of ocean shows little variation in depth because most areas are equally deep. These are the abyssal plains, usually greater than 3,000 meters. Mariana Trench is the deepest part of the world's ocean. It is located in the western Pacific Ocean and it reaches a maximum known depth of 10.9 kilometers. The ocean can warm or cool the air in a number of different ways. When the air is at a lower temperature than the seawater, the ocean transfers heat to the lower atmosphere. When becomes less dense, as the heat causes molecules in the air to move further apart. And this is why that most of the coastal areas that even in peak summer that we get cool winds from the ocean during the night, and because that interplay of movement of air from the land to ocean and ocean to land. As a result, a low pressure air mass forms over the part of the ocean. Conversely, cool and cold waters lead to the formation of high pressure air masses as the air molecules move closer together. Because air always flows from areas of higher pressure to those of lower pressure, winds are directed towards the low pressure area. Now let us talk about Gulf Stream. Gulf Stream is part of the thermohaline circulation which is throughout the world, and this is from the equatorial line. Some streams go, the hot air goes up to the poles, northern pole and southern poles. From the polar regions, cold air enters the equatorial region. This Gulf Stream in particular moves up certain parts of Europe which might be much more colder if the Gulf Stream stops. There is an assumption, and scientists say that if climate change advances, this Gulf Stream may stop and it may make the northern part of North America and also the northwestern part of Europe become colder. And so this is one reason that even the Western countries are very particular about the issues of curtailing climate change. Some currents carrying warm water from the tropical and subtropical regions towards the poles, while the other currents move colder water in the opposite direction. The Gulf Stream is a current that transports warm water across the northern Atlantic. This is the Atlantic, the northern Atlantic, including the United Kingdom, from Florida towards Europe. Florida, this side to Europe. Before reaching Europe, the Gulf Stream breaks into several other currents, and one of which flows to British Isles and Norway. Driven by the sun's heat, absorbed by the tropical oceans, and impacted by variations in the salt content in the water, the thermohaline circulation is a powerful force on the world's climate system. As the heat from the tropics is carried by the Gulf Stream into the North Atlantic, where it is vented into the atmosphere, a deep convection of ocean waters is caused by surface cooling, with the flow of water then sinks to depths and then upwelling back to the surface at lower latitudes, that is near the equator. When frozen water releases a salt, and thus when it melts, it is salt free. Water becomes frozen near the poles, it releases a salt. The frozen water, the polar ice cap do not consist of salt. It becomes salt free. This factor and heavier density of salty water is particularly important in the polar regions, where the convergence of fresh and saline waters influence ocean current. The convergence of fresh and saline waters also has a role in triggering the ocean currents. This is a thermohaline circulation model, and the warm water moves up, and when it comes back as a cold water, at the lower level of the ocean it comes back. The same thermohaline circulation, the warm water in the top layer and colder water in the lower layer. And thermohaline circulation has also much to do with the nutritional content of the ocean. The conveyor belt is also the vital component of the global ocean nutrient and carbon dioxide cycles. Warm surface waters are depleted of nutrients, and if the water is warm, the nutrients gets lost and carbon dioxide, but they are enriched again as they travel through the conveyor belt as deep or bottom layers. When they go to the deep layer as a cold water, they are again nutrient rich. The base of the world's food chain depends on the cold, nutrient-rich water that support the growth of algae and seaweeds. The conveyor belt gives nutrients to algae and seaweeds. But for this conveyor belt, the algae and seaweeds may not grow properly. The thermohaline circulation is dynamic and has been known to dramatically shift, as it appears to have done just after the last ice age and perhaps during the episodes of abrupt climate change. In the last ice age, scientists have noticed that thermohaline circulation almost stopped. So if the climate change advances, there is a possibility thermohaline circulation may again suffer. Such shift in the thermohaline circulation, the conveyor belt of ocean heat, can cause major changes in the climate over the relatively short time scales. That earlier, that conveyor belt change happened over a large period of time, but if the climate change advances, it can happen within 10 to 20 years, which in turn can have enormous impact on human activities. Atlantic thermohaline circulation may reduce due to the climate change. If the current stops bringing warm equatorial air northward via the Gulf Stream, it could lead to increasing cold in northern Europe, including countries like the United Kingdom and Norway, and the Atlantic coast in the US. Now let us talk about the cryosphere, that is the ice. From the Greek terminology, the cold, frost, ice is a term which collectively describes the portions of the Earth's surface where water is in solid form, including sea ice, lake ice, river ice, snow cover, glacier, ice caps, and ice sheets and portion ground which include permafrost. Ice covers 5.7. This is the northern pole, and this is a different way the picture is taken, that it's Antarctic, and this is the northern sea, this Arctic Sea. Ice covers 5.7% of the Earth's surface and contains 2.05% of the Earth's supply of water. It comes in the many forms: continental ice sheets, mountain glaciers, sea ice, snow, permafrost. You see that the poles, it's not only in the poles there is ice caps, and even in the temperate region, Alps cutting across Switzerland, and then Himalayas cutting across India, Andes in South America, and Kilimanjaro in Central Africa. The cryosphere on land stores about 75% of the world's fresh water. The volumes of Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets are equivalent to approximately 7 meters and 57 meters of sea level rise respectively. If at all they melt, it will be catastrophic. Changes in the ice mass on land have contributed to the recent changes in sea level. Glaciers and ice caps like Himalayas play a crucial role in freshwater availability. Especially in India and neighboring countries, the freshwater availability is mainly by Himalayas. Now, ice permanently covers 10% of land surface, of which only a tiny fraction lies in ice caps and glaciers outside Antarctica and Greenland. Sea ice forms, it seals off the underlying oceans from the interaction with the atmosphere. Without an ice cover, high latitude oceans transfer large amounts of heat to the atmosphere, especially in winter. If an ice cover is present, this heat release is much smaller, so that the air temperature can drop to minus 30 degrees or colder, and less solar radiation is observed by the highly reflective ice surface, ice snow albedo feedback. If the ice cover is much, that the solar radiation emerging back from the earth will be less, that the solar radiation reaches the earth and earth observes it, and infrared radiation emerges back, which is in turn emerges, that will be less. If there is no sorry, I'll stop here. I go back to the cryosphere. When the sea ice forms, it seals off the underlying oceans from the interactions with the atmosphere. Without an ice cover, high latitude oceans transfer large amount of heat to the atmosphere, especially in winter. If an ice cover is present, this heat release is much smaller, so that air temperature can drop to minus 30 degrees Celsius or colder. Also, less solar radiation is observed by the highly reflected ice surface. If the ice starts melting, the sea will absorb more and more ice, and the heat, which will be more in the heat emerging, and the greenhouse effect will be more triggered more, and the earth will be much more and much more hotter. So there is a need to protect this ice cover. In the African continent, Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, how the ice cover gets reduced over a period of time. 2012, there is 12 square kilometer of ice cover, and 1970, 5 square kilometer of ice cover. 2000, 2.5 square kilometer of ice cover, and in the recent period 2007 is reduced as low as 1.5 square kilometer of ice cover, very less ice cover in the same concurrent period is taken. Thank you.